Hello. Oh, okay. At least a little bit. Oh my goodness. That's me taking my headphones off. Can this hear me okay? Okay. Seems to be not working. Poof. Not working as well as it normally does. Normally flashes up. But at least it's covering something. Oh my goodness. I had my headphones on. Can you tell? Ugh. The joys of going live and not being able to practice. It appears when you do a live on YouTube, it doesn't like it if you've got headphones and no microphone. It won't show both. I was trying to connect the microphone to this and listening to the headphones on something else, but it wouldn't let me do that. So this is very strange. The sound, I don't know whether you know from recordings, there's normally little dots on the bottom and it shows you how much the microphone is working. But for some reason, it's not showing. It's showing it a little bit, but not as much as it normally does. Boop. I don't know why. Everything's on. Okie dokie. I may keep this quite short unless anybody joins me because I can't be sure that the volume and everything is working today. That's all good fun to check things out. My goodness, that I've been dragged through a hedge backwards. But anyway, I didn't do a live last week and I thought, oh, I'll do a quick one today to catch up with people and also to push myself to say, hit record. You need to keep talking and keep expressing ideas and thoughts and stuff. And I've spoken to a few people recently who've mentioned that they would like to write a book, maybe. And I think it seemed like a bit of a fantasy project for them. And I wanted to be somebody that says, yes, it is possible to write a book. Now, I've mainly done non-fiction books. And I haven't done the traditional publisher, agent, and everything route. I've self published my books. So I didn't have to persuade anybody that the books were good enough to publish. I just had to persuade myself that I had the courage to do it. And and a lot of the advice that I was seeing about writing a book was overwhelming, but also it was just write it, just keep writing. But I was so preoccupied with, I don't know the publishing, I don't know what this happens, I don't know this, and that I thought maybe if I just quickly go through kind of from the end stages of how to publish and what the costs are relating to that, then maybe having your nervous system calmed about the end stages, then you'd feel more comfortable getting started with the early stages of writing. So I've published with Amazon. I also have an account with another company, but mainly it's through Amazon. And it's free to self-publish through Amazon. You set up an account with Kindle Create and you tend to use the same password as your Amazon account. And when you set that up, you don't have to do anything else. You can say, oh, at some point in the future, I'd like to write a book. You set up an account and you'll see the setup process, but you don't have to do anything more. If that's something that makes you feel a little bit better of, oh, I know how this works now, I can just see what it looks like, then that's good. On the setup process, you don't have to have all of your book ready. You can do part of it as a setup behind the scenes. You don't have, when you type in a title, it doesn't automatically go to Amazon. I was so scared about all of these things when I started writing. It was all so new and I didn't know anybody that had written any books. So when you're ready to set up a book, you can put your title in. I think they like you to keep, I think once you've published, you need to keep the same title. You don't have to put, I normally put a title as I'm thinking and working things through. I don't put what the subtitle is. And as you go down the list, it'll say who's the author, who's the editor. And it might ask you if you want to upload the book or upload, the internal pages, the covers. Or you could just say, just move on. It doesn't always let you go on to the pricing side of things, which is a shame because it's quite useful to see the pricing. But at least then you'll go back to what's called your bookshelf, I think it's called. And you'll see that the title of your book, and it's like partway through setup, type of thing. I can't remember all the different words that it uses, but you'll see it's fairly clearly that that is all it is. And later on, you can learn how to turn, say, a Word document into the PDF file or whatever type of file you need to upload to Amazon. But it is fairly straightforward. They do a little bit of a quality check. Once you've uploaded everything, they do a quality check. You will be asked if you have an ISBN, which is, these little barcode things with the numbers. I have mine because I knew that I wanted to write a lot of books, so I bought 100 of those. But you don't have to. Amazon will give you one. And on Amazon, you can self-publish a paperback book like this, or I think you can do hardback too now, or you can have it just as Kindle. I think sometimes when people think about self-publishing on Amazon, they think, oh, that's just a digital copy. But no, you can have both. And what happens is, if somebody buys your book as a paperback version, Amazon publish it, print it, then send it out to them, and then you just get the royalties. So you don't have to deal with the printing side of things. Everything is sort of print on demand. That's what they call it. And that to me was really useful. The downside of print on demand is that you don't know who's bought your book, and you don't have any contact information for them in the future. The positive is that, especially if you're doing a non-fiction book and it's a problem-solving book, people use Amazon as a bit of a Google search type of thing, fixing certain problems. So that's it, really. I'm assuming, because there was a light, if somebody came and then disappeared and then there was a like, I'm assuming that means that they can actually hear me. I must have blinked when they came, because it would have been really useful to ask them if they could hear and if the sound was loud enough and everything. But yeah, I felt like I was talking about writing a book for a good 20 years. And I made it into such a massive thing. And I definitely investigated finding an agent and getting a publisher and all of these different things. And as I say, it just became so big. It was more than just writing a book, which would have been huge for me. It was also learning the systems and all the terminology. And then when I did decide to go self-publishing, how does that work? And what are the costs? And how do I find this person to help me? And how do I do this? There was too many things. So what I ended up doing was, I'd already been drawing the cartoons. I'll show you the first book. The first book I did was called Grow, and it's mainly cartoons. Yeah. And the reason I did that was I felt lighter about my cartoons. I didn't feel so precious, that it was a really important message of mine that was my whole life. I was meaning to communicate this message. And so in a way, what I did was I separated another book which I wrote, which I felt was more, I don't know, something that I really, really, really wanted to say. I separated that from the how do you get a book published. And so it really didn't matter how well this one did. I learned how to format the pages. I learned how to, doing the introduction and just generally how, I don't suppose you can see that well. No, a bit too much flashy light. The index, but yeah. I'm going to show you the card. I don't think you can see the cartoons that well. Just kind of fun. And if you've been talking about writing a book for decades, like I have, I would highly recommend publish something small, and you can do it under a pen name if you want to, but try and separate some of the tasks and some of the things that you feel are important, and it may be useful. I think the smallest book that you can do is about 80 pages. And in fact, some people publish things which are like notebooks with minimal writing inside. So if you want to do that at least separates all of the different tasks, and you can learn, oh, this is how I upload it, and this is how I do this, and this is how I do that, rather than the pressure that you might put on yourself. Now, clearly, if you're going to go the agent route and find a publisher, I think you need the skills to be able to persuade somebody that your idea is good, which I didn't feel that I had. But then once you have persuaded them, in a way, that must be really nice because it's like having a vote of approval of someone. So that must give you a little bit of confidence in the writing and whatever you've written and you want to share. But I think there's a lot of people, I've been speaking to recently that seem to have more than one thing in their mind that they would like to create and do, even if it's not necessarily this year coming up. They're thinking, should I do this or should I do that? And I think there's some creative force inside of them that they want to do more. And yeah, so I thought, okay, I don't talk about the books much on my channel because I'm trying to figure out video and turning up and just speaking. But maybe if some of them see that, oh, somebody like us, Joanne, has written the books, then that might be useful. I shall show you what I've done because I've had a little bit of a play with the books. I can see people come, and then I occasionally get somebody, and then I go. But I'm assuming then that means that people can hear me. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe. As I say, I put earphones on. So the first one was Grow, and that's mainly the cartoons, and that was really useful for getting to know things. The next two, the next were about fixing mind blocks when speaking. You know, when your brain goes and you can't think of anything to say. That's what I used to teach and help people with. So I did 2 different books about that. This book was, I think this is one of the super small books. It's actually about 70 pages, so you must be able to do a book with 70 pages. I particularly wanted to be able to do just a small book. And when you decide to write a book, if you decide to do one on Amazon, you'll be asked about the book size. I particularly wanted square for this one, but that's classed as non-standard size, which means that they won't print it in some countries, which is a bit of a pain, but I felt strongly enough to do it as square. I think really, I don't know, I really like the square format, but I think probably in the future it'll be more normal standard. And you'll be asked, this is, I think it's like a cream, I don't know whether you can tell, it's like a creamy coloured paper, and then a white color, and this has got full color inserts. But all of these things you'll see, but I think what happens is people don't set up the account and just look at what the questions are because they feel so overwhelmed and they feel like I've got to write the book and then maybe I've got to do agents. Nothing's stopping you from having this account and just having a look and just making it feel a lot more possible for you. Someone like you can write a book. You don't need permission from anybody. You can just, and then when you put your title in, you can see what the different options are. You can see what the different prices are. All good. Anyway, that's what I did. 1, 2, 3. And then I can't remember. I think I might have done this one next, the Global House. And my background was property, so I wrote about property stuff. And as I say, and then Speaking Made Simple. This was the book that I really cared about. This was the one that I thought I'm really going to help people. And then as soon as I finished it, I thought, I think it's too much. I think I need to simplify it. So I wrote a workbook and experimented with it being A4 and doing a workbook. So there you go. And then one Christmas, just for fun, I thought, oh, I'll do a children's book. And again, you can see that I went for the cartoons and the square format, making it not publishable in some countries. This is a bad mistake. And then the other month, I did journaling with cartoons, letting people know how to do the cartoons themselves if they wanted to express themselves and play and have a go at that. And then next month, I have Happy Speaking. Come out. So there you go. Books. if you, especially if you're doing nonfiction, if you write a nonfiction book, I suspect you'll write more than one. They're quite fun to do. And once you know that it's possible for somebody like you to write a book, you'll find that you start recommending it to other people too and say, oh, yeah, just write a book. Yeah, it's easy, just write a book. But I do remember what it was like. As I say, I spent about 20 years telling myself, just do it, just write the book if that's the dream. And I could not persuade myself. I was so overwhelmed by all the things that I needed to learn. And also nobody was telling me that they wanted the book, and nobody was telling me that I was good enough at writing to write a book. And so that was pretty scary. Anyway, Dino says, hi. I've been rabbiting. I put earphones on, and can you tell? And then I had to take them off quick. So dragged through a hedge backwards. I normally just use the Sunday Live just for Q&A if people have got any questions for me. But I used the first few minutes to rattle on about something, and I was just explaining about the books. But it's more because I've heard a few people say they'd like to write books, but I think they probably dismissed it and sort of dismissed themselves and thought, no, I won't. I'm not sure that I'm somebody who can write a book. And I wanted them to feel like there's things that you can find out. You don't have to commit to making a book and writing a huge book. You can find out some bits and pieces about it and see if the momentum gathers and you get some energy and some excitement. So Dino's saying, what would you say your favorite book? I'm trying to get into reading. What would you recommend? It depends if you're fiction or non-fiction. If you're fiction, I'm not sure I can make a recommendation because I haven't been reading much fiction lately. If you're like non-fiction, especially if you're interested in creativity type of thing, I would recommend The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. That's a bit of a classic, and it talks about resistance and the more important a project is for you to do or to make or create, the stronger resistance will be. So, but it's a real classic. It's a really good book. So I would definitely recommend that. I'm just trying to think what else I've got up there. Just trying to think. Depends how serious you want to go, because if you're just getting back into reading, you might want something lighter. One that's jumping out to me right at the moment, it's coming to my head. I don't know why. There's a book called Better by Atul Gawande, Gwande, and he was or is a surgeon, and he's saying how can we talk about becoming better at something, especially in the medical profession. And he was talking about how do surgeons become better? You need to define what better is. Is better faster, safer, cheaper as an operation, and how you can do all of those things. Because I'm somebody that likes words, so I think what happens is when we say that we want to do something better, we all assume that we're meaning the same thing. And he really got into the details, saying, what does better mean in this situation? And I really like stuff like that. Anyway, I can see there's another couple of people. I've been waffling on about books that I've written because I've spoken to a few people that have said they're interested in writing a book. I'm not sure that they were totally entertaining that idea 100%. I think it was just a thought that was maybe at the back of their mind of, yeah, I'd like to write a book someday. And I was wondering, how can I encourage them to push it to the front of their mind? So that's what I'm saying. So anyway, Dino, are you preferring fiction or non-fiction? It's tough when you've been out of reading for a little while. Can you tell us about your books? As I say, the non-fiction, I'll tell you about the last one that I did last month. This one, I'm sorry about the lighting. Journaling with cartoons. I do these little cartoons on Instagram, and it's really just me expressing what my inner dialogue is. And what I find is sometimes I hear some words or I hear a quote and I think, oh, I really like that quote and I want to write it down and remember it. And then I'm just trying to think. I'm not sure how I'm not sure how to angle this. Oh yeah. So then you'll see. So I write down the little quote, and then go this way, and then I do a cartoon. Those are strange ones because I'm normally drawing a red dress girl. Okay, so I need to do that. So there you can see, am I trying to create something that I shouldn't be? And I'm creating a monster, but little me in the red dress is saying, you're so beautiful. So yeah, and what I do with the cartoons is that I don't have a fixed idea in mind when I'm drawing them. I like the words and I'm trying to relax and be in the moment because I've done a lot of censoring of myself and don't say this and do say this. And I'm not an artist as such. So, what happens when I go to draw the person is sometimes their face will go a bit squiffy and it feels like, oh, they're not saying this, they're saying that. So, it's almost like improvisation that I draw something, then the words change, and then something else changes, something else changes. And it's almost like the meaning evolves as I'm doing it. So I find it quite relaxing and I also find it quite fun. And so for fun, it's strange what people do for fun. I wrote a book for fun. I wrote a book. I thought I thought maybe somebody else would like to have a go at the drawings. And the joy of being able to write and publish the book myself, I didn't have to persuade anybody that there was a market for it. I could I could write it, I could make it, it could exist, and if people enjoy it, then that's great. And Dino is saying I like anything really in terms of the books. Yeah. I haven't been reading a huge amount lately. I've been struggling to read. Been struggling to read. So it says just the letter P. Hi, Joanne. What is your top tip for writing a book? Something you wish you knew when you began? What is my top tip? Um, I think something I wish I knew years ago before I began is I think I was so worried about how much it would cost and what experts were needed and the end of the publishing part of it rather than the writing. I was so worried about that. Then I never started with the writing. And I think I think that's why at the beginning of this video I said, "Oh, you can publish on Amazon for free. Oh, you can just set up the account and put the title of the book." And nobody else is going to see that. I think I needed that reassurance. I needed to know a little bit of what the final steps were going to be before I could really start and get on with the writing in earnest. Really, I'd written down a few different ideas, but I think I just needed to settle myself about what those last few steps were and that they weren't so overwhelming. Um, I know they say do one step at a time, but for me particularly, I needed to know what those last few were. Is that possible? I don't want to do all of this work and all of this writing and then be told, oh, it's £1,000 or something to publish it. I just needed to settle myself about that. So I think that's why at the beginning of this I said if you wanted to self-publish particularly, you could set up this account, you could figure out how to upload the book on Amazon without actually uploading it. You could just look at the files. Say my first book was much more simple. It didn't have a huge amount of writing in it. It was mainly the cartoons. But I needed that. I needed to know, oh, it's possible. It still seemed really complicated to me, the whole publishing process. But having a little bit of an understanding of those last few steps meant that I could really commit to the writing and the layout and getting everything written. So that's what I would say. So P was saying that's lovely, total freedom with putting the book out there. Yeah, I had books in mind um, that I wanted to write about, particularly about communication, but I just didn't feel like I had the skills to persuade somebody that it was necessary. I felt like I had ideas that I needed to express, but my sales skills were not strong, and I'm still working on that. Well, I'm not working on it at all, am I? All I'm doing at the moment is doing these videos. I don't know whether some of you know, I've been doing daily videos. I've been showing up every day and turning the camera on because I found it really hard. I was really shy before, and I needed to build my confidence with speaking. I did that. I was doing some teaching and I was helping other people with everyday speaking and thinking on your feet. So I did that. But for me, being on camera was a completely different skill. And I think I just have to keep building those skills and building that confidence. And I'm not worried too much about learning sales, persuasion, negotiation, anything specific like that. For me right now, the focus is on turn the camera on, be able to speak, turn the camera on. And we'll see where that ends me at the end of the year. So anyway, thanks for the tip. P says, thanks for the tip. That's so true. Sometimes not knowing what happens at the end of a project is unsettling and overwhelming. So would you like to write? Is this something that you're curious about? Yeah, I think there's a lot when you go want to do a new project, there's so many things that seem so big. It's what can you remove and make simple? And in hindsight, those last few steps are relatively simple compared to doing all the writing of the book. So anything that to try and make it seem less of this huge mountain and make it a little bit smaller. I've also been asked if I would consider making a deck of cards with the cartoons. I was asked this about 6 months ago by a psychiatrist or a counsellor or somebody, and they put it to this group of counsellors and they said they'd get back to me. But I think, again, it may be that maybe I just make a deck of cards with the cartoons on to aid communication. As I said, all the cartoons tend to be about the inner dialogue and being conflicted. It tends to be a little bit lighter and a bit more humorous. But I had a check today about designing your own deck of cards. It's amazing what you can do. And it starts from I can publish it's a lot of work to upload all the images and everything, but I could publish one deck of cards and have it posted to myself, and that would be about £20. And I thought, that's not that bad. I mean, it's just a fun project, a bit of a play. Nah, I can pay for £20. That's okay. So, and if you're wondering about the covers for the books, if you're thinking anything like that, I use a website called Canva, Canva. Canva. But I quite like doing the layout and all of that type of thing. But I think one of the reasons I wanted to speak about this is you may be thinking about 2025, and maybe you've got a big goal and you know what you're going for. But maybe you're just thinking, what would be a fun project? And it's amazing. All of these things are possible for us, but it can feel a little bit like, who am I to write a book, or who am I to design my own deck of cards and just publish it? And yet it is possible for us. Dino says, what a beautiful goal. I know that publishing on TikTok could attract a wide range of supporters. Will you try making videos on there? I am on TikTok at the moment. I've been sharing the daily videos. I've done a couple to do with the cartoons and the book, but really out of my depth. I've had a few ideas. The last couple of months, I was doing a course about comedy writing, and I was attempting to learn something about writing comedy or particularly doing things online. The course was a little bit more focused on being a stand-up comedian. I was like, I don't want to do that. But it was interesting to learn about the comedy. Again, who knew that you could do all these courses? And I had a few ideas of things that I wanted to do or I could do on TikTok, uh, but I haven't really done anything. But I do feel like now is a time to refresh, and that's why when somebody mentioned about this deck of cards, I thought, I thought about that earlier in the earlier in the year. Maybe it's time to rethink that. And I've, as I say, I've already got the one book planned coming out January 30th. I've got another one October 23rd. I'm sure I can squeeze in a deck of cards or something because the cartoons are all done. It takes a while. Obviously, if each card is going to have a different cartoon, then I've got to upload it and format it and make sure that looks good. And then I think, I'm going to have to design what the reverse is. And I think they were saying about sometimes it helps to have like a little booklet in with the cards. I don't think I'd be buying a whole, like 100 decks of cards, though. I don't think I'd be investing in anything like that. I think publish one, and if there was any interest, then I would get some pre-orders or something like that. But again, it's all an experiment at the moment, and this would be probably a few months. Quite a few people that I've been speaking to, specifically on the reaction video side of things, talk about having an interest with mental health and different areas. So that's interesting. I don't know whether any of those people that I'm connected to would be interested in these cards as a way for people to communicate. But we'll see. But it was exciting to think of a project because for me personally, I've tried having projects where it's this will work and it'll make this much money, and focusing more on the financial side of a project and a goal and an outcome. And I didn't find it motivating, and I didn't feel well, I didn't achieve any of those goals. So it always seemed like, well, this is just completely guesswork. How are you what anything works? So I think for the moment, it's a lot of I need to keep doing experiments. What would be a fun experiment? And the books are a fun thing to do. Keeping doing the cartoons a fun thing to do. Doing the videos stretches me, but again, fun thing to do. Doing the cards, that I could see that will be a fun thing to do. And I sell like birthday cards on Redbubble, a website called Redbubble with the cartoons on. And I've given that zero attention during this year. And I think maybe next year I'll have a little play on that. It's quite a lot of time and energy invested in these things, and you don't know. You don't know whether they're useful or if they're of any interest to other people. So I'm not sure if it's the same people are still here, but any other questions, just let me know. Especially if you're creating and wondering about things for yourself. I think sometimes if you are somebody who likes to make things, you just have to get a little idea in your head of, oh, that would be fun to do. I don't think that you can keep thinking this will work and so I'll do this, because then you'd just be disappointed, wouldn't you, if it didn't work? You need to be doing it because the whole making this and learning about it will be fun. Okay, I'm sorry, my mouse has stopped a second. P says, I love that. Life is all about experimenting. It gets boring if we never try new things. I think what's surprising is that there's so many things that are relatively easy. I mean, I have a Canva. I pay for an extra add-ons on the Canva, but there are a lot of functions on that website which are free, and I can upload the images are already done. I could have the images on cards. And I was saying to my husband, I don't really want to do a huge investment in these cards. But then I just Googled it and looked it up, and it said, and then it said £20. If you only want to publish one deck of cards and just have it as an experiment, it's about £20. I thought, that's okay. That's all reasonable. I think it can be surprising. I think sometimes you think, oh, it's going to be a £500 experiment or £1,000 experiment, and that, obviously something like that would make you stop and think, okay, how much do I want to do that as an expensive hobby? Not expecting to earn any money. I'm not really into, I don't make music or anything, but I'm guessing it's a similar thing, is that the lower your costs are in terms of making your own record, then the more it seems like, oh, it's a fun thing that I can do. I can experiment. I can do that. He was saying, I'm thinking of writing a fiction book as a pastime. It's always been an interest of mine, and I feel like it would be really nice to create something that I'd personally love to read. That's nice. Sorry, it froze a little bit then. I think that's great. I think that's great. And start writing. As I said, the Stephen Pressfield book that I recommended earlier about the War of Art, he talks about resistance. So the more important the project is, the bigger you'll find the resistance and the different excuses that your mind will come up with. But maybe 2025 is time for you to write your fiction book. Also, you may find that you don't have an idea or a plan, but it might just be fun to start writing or something. I found that for some of the things I was writing, that it helped. I don't know whether you've seen Julia Cameron's book, and she talks about journaling. She talks specifically about having artist dates, in that almost like feeding yourself. So maybe it is about reading something, but it may also be about going to the movies, or, I mean, lately what I've been doing on Instagram is following more artists. And so it's kind of, you feed yourself with different creativity and different inputs, and then that itself will help you almost fill you up, so that when you're ready to create, you've got lots of different ideas and things. I've been following quite a few artists lately who do more three-dimensional art. And I don't do that at all. I don't even know how to talk about that. But who knows how it creeps out in different things that you make. But I do think there's a value to feeding yourself and making that a practice, and then starting writing. Don't throw anything away. That's it. That's the one thing I would say. Don't throw anything away. You can just write, and then sometimes it helps to wait a few weeks before you read and look back at it, and then you'll think, some of this is okay. I don't remember this. I remember thinking the whole thing was a waste of time, but some of it was okay. So don't throw anything away. And you never know. My next door neighbour writes short fiction, I think she calls it, which is just a couple of pages long, and there's this whole area of people who do that. So he was saying, yeah, taking a break can really help sometimes. Yeah, I've written quite half written, part written, I'm not sure what you call it, quite a lot of different books, and I've been looking at them lately, and so some of them I'm thinking, oh gosh, that needs a complete rewrite, and others I'm thinking, no, there's pieces I can salvage. I think one of them in particular, I've probably waited too long, and I've got to decide, do I publish it the way it was, which reflects my thinking from 10 years ago, or do I try and update the whole thing? And say, obviously, especially with the non-fiction stuff, our thinking changes. It's like, is it useful? Is it still useful? Do I publish? But as I say, I'm looking. I don't know whether you could tell, but I'm looking over there because there's a pile of paperwork like this that I've been going through. There's things that I've been writing, courses that I used to teach, and I thought, I'll make that into a book. Oh, but yeah, it's all good fun. But anyway, I have really enjoyed writing the books, and I was thinking, I don't know whether you know this about me, but I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and I wasn't sure what future was in terms of what I'd be able to do work-wise. But I thought, well, if I can still write the books, that would be fun. And it was nice to think of something that would be pleasurable and fun for me, um, and maybe possible to keep doing if I'm not feeling so well and not able to write or work much in the day, or if I need to be at home. And I thought, well, what if in the next 5 years that's what I do? I write books, I draw the cartoons, and that's my creative expression and my way to connect with other people. And that felt good. So I was like, okay, go that way. I didn't know at that point what the books would be and anything else. And I think quite a lot of it is still up in the air. But it felt good and it's like, okay, go in that direction. So do you have any other questions? Can I encourage you to write? What would you need to hear to say, okay, I'm going to go and write now? That would be really interesting. Dino says, the past projects are treasure. They are the base that allows you to progress through this journey of creating art. Thank you. Yeah. Do you create them? What do you do? I'm so pleased. The books that I've written are not big successes, financial or anything else in terms of sales, but I'm really pleased I've written them. I feel like I've learned a huge amount. I've learned about writing, I've learned about the publishing process, I've been learning about sort of the advertising. Um, I've just there have been really hard moments of it, but there's been loads that I've enjoyed doing. Also, in terms of how I express myself, because I like my cartoons. So it froze again on me then. But somebody was saying to me, "Oh, are your books for children because they've got cartoons in?" And I thought, I don't think so. I don't think they look like that. And so what I did was on one of those books, I took all of the cartoons out and I looked at it and I was almost about to publish it without the cartoons. And I thought, it's not me. It doesn't feel like me. Something's missing. And so I added them back in again. But I think that's a useful experience, is that, yes, some people may look at books with cartoons in and go, it's for children or it's not for me. But I felt like that represented me and my voice more than just leaving them out. As I say, some people will be turned off by the cartoons. Other people, my mom was saying to me that one of her friends looked through the book and flicked through and just read all the cartoons. And she was almost saying as if like, oh, that was naughty. She shouldn't have done. You're supposed to read it through from the beginning. And I was like, no, that's great. Anything to get you to open the book and flick through, and if it's something that you connect to, and that maybe the first time you flick through and you look at the cartoons, but maybe the next time you read a little bit around them. That's all great. So it is weird though, because I've been saying to people for the last 6 months that I've been doing these videos that I don't know what's ahead of me. And I do think that people think I'm exaggerating. I think they think I have a plan, a cunning plan. And it's like, no, I really don't. I really don't. I can see that being happier on camera would be beneficial, but I really do not have a plan. As I say, I said to you about doing the books, but it was more that I had this thought of, oh, there's 3 books, and then I had the 3 titles. And the first 2, I thought, oh, I need to do those quickly because the third one's going to take a while. But there's a lot for me to figure out still. P says, honestly, you've already been very encouraging. I feel like your main message is to be creative for oneself and one's soul and happiness. And that's something I really needed to, I'm getting to hear. You really needed to hear. I hope so. It's funny on my, I don't know whether you've seen anything about my channel. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this. Normally at the top of your YouTube channel, there's a banner and then they say, the channel is about this. It's like, I know what I'm doing. The channel is about this. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. so, so I put fully self-expressed question mark. I thought, I think I'm kind of going in that direction. Um, I have this idea, I have this feeling that I need to be more fully self-expressed. I think I heard Oprah say it, and then I searched quite a bit online, and I haven't really found a satisfactory definition of what fully self-expressed is. But I know previously I kept being told almost to be like a business and have a brand and just say one thing or one message, and I thought this feels really off. So for one point, I was thinking I'll just do the cartoons, or I'll just teach, or I just. I thought I don't think that's enough. I think, and as I say, I kept coming back to this phrase: "is fully self-expressed." I did find some people talk about sort of reaching potential and being self-actualized, uh, but I'm not sure I'm being fulfilled. But I haven't really found a good definition of fully self-expressed. So as I say, maybe the whole channel is trying to figure out what fully self-expressed means and whether that does lead to some sort of fulfillment or self-actualization or happiness. Ah, dear me. But I think that the skill of being on camera is going to be valuable for me in the future. And it has been fun doing it. Um, so yeah, we shall figure this out. Particularly the interviews. I don't know if you've seen any of the other videos that I've done, but I've been experimenting a bit. And when I can do the interviews, I can ask other people, particularly other creators, how did you get started? What's going on in your head? Are you talking yourself out of it? Are you censoring yourself? I can be really nosy and ask them all those questions. And that's been really good. And people have said that they like watching that. But it's funny, sometimes they say to me that the questions are good, which is very nice. And I'm thinking, well, really, the questions are just me being very, very nosy. Because, and again, if you look at the cartoons I do, there seems to be these two different voices of, I really want to do this. And then I really don't want to do this. I'm scared. I don't think I should be doing this. So there's a lot of conflict that I see in the cartoons. A lot of people Some people look at the cartoons and go, "Ah, cartoon, cute." Some people go, "Oh, that's me. That's what happens in my head." So I'm hoping the person who's just got the letter P, I'm hoping that you are encouraged being creative for oneself. Ooh, I mentioned this on another video. Maybe this will help give you a little bit of a push too. There was somebody who was saying about different personality traits and that these personality traits were inherited. And one of the traits was something called openness, which correlates with creativity. And so if you are high in openness, you are likely to be a creative person. What was interesting about it, so it's interesting that that may be just your makeup, that's just the way you are. If you are a creative person, then you need to create. That's something that you need to do in terms of your own personal satisfaction. It isn't that you need to be majorly successful and rich from anything you create, but in terms of your own well-being, you need to be making something. And I thought, well, that's really interesting because I think I saw at the time when I heard that, I think I saw the idea of being a creator as being, oh, I've got those professional skills as an artist, or I have all the skills. I saw it as a different level. I didn't see it as being a very personal thing of maybe I just need to make something today. And as I say, this particular person was saying a creator type, if you have this openness trait, then you need to make something every day. You need to be feeling that you're expressing yourself. There's a book, I think somebody earlier, I can't remember if it was P or if it was Dino, was asking me about books I recommend. There's one called Evil Plans by Hugh MacLeod, who I think he does the Gaping Void cartoons. And this Evil Plans, the very end of the book, I'm not gonna get this quote right. It has a quotation about work, and it says, we don't we don't hate our jobs because they ask too much of us. All good jobs ask a lot of us. We hate the jobs because we can't give enough of ourselves. And that really struck with me because they're not saying it's not about how hard you work. It's about, I want to feel that I'm giving something of me to this work that only I can do, ideally. Um, and that there's a lot of jobs that don't allow you to give all of yourself. And I suppose that's creativity, isn't it? But it's a sense of something is from me that only I can do adds value to this project. And I ended up losing that book and I had to rebuy it again because I couldn't find the quote anywhere online. I thought, oh, I love the quote so much. I know I got the quote wrong a bit. So the book is Evil Plans by Hugh MacLeod. Highly recommend that. So, any other questions? I'm in a silly mood. So, and if you're wondering, it's just water that I'm drinking. I think there's also something to be said with making something small and gaining some momentum. And maybe it's something like you hear a quote and you just write it down. You say, I like that. I like that quote. Thank you for the book recommendations. You're welcome. As I say, it depends. I mean, there's a zillion books, isn't there? I'm looking over at my bookshelf now. When I became ill, I struggled to manage the home, so I got into minimalism. Not so much the aesthetic of everything white or anything like that, but I had to get rid of a lot of possessions around the home because I couldn't manage. I couldn't manage the home, and I got rid of a couple of thousand books. But the ones that I've kept, which is why I'm looking over at the bookshelf, I promised myself it would be only one bookshelf and that the home would be easier to manage if I didn't have so much stuff around. But the bookshelf right now is like bursting at the seams. I'm just trying to squeeze all the books in. I'm definitely a book lover. But right now, there's books about health and there's books about everything. So I'm also exploring and investigating about ADHD and different things like that. Dino says, "Are you a fan of classic literature?" I don't feel hugely knowledgeable about classic literature. I do hear people talk about it, and funnily enough, I've just bought today the Audible book by Stephen Fry, which is Odyssey. So classic, yeah, like classic story. I've always really wanted to know sort of the Greek mythology and different things, but I struggle with remembering the names and just the vocabulary from those type of things. So I thought, well, maybe with Audible and maybe with Stephen Fry reading it. And in the interview he was doing, they were saying you make the story quite accessible. I would love to be familiar with a lot of the really older stories. There's quite a few books there about story structure and different things. So I've been studying books from that side of things. But I there's so much I haven't read. There's so much I haven't read. About 20 years ago, 10, 20 years ago, I started reading some of what I would call as classics, the Dickens and the different things. But it felt like a chore. It felt like, get through it. Just got to read this. I don't think it's supposed to be like that, but I spent a few months going through some of the classics. But I think it's all experiments, isn't it? I'm interested in knowing the stories. Yeah, and find ways to keep my interest. I recently I've just been watching some history channels. I can't remember the name of the history channel on YouTube, and he covers. I don't know why I'm relating this to stories. Sorry, I've gone off track. He relates famous TV shows and films about historical events, and he facts checks them. So it's kind of a storytelling, but historical. And I've really enjoyed that. I found him really watchable. And that obviously he's using clips from the film, and then sometimes he gets frustrated that they went so far off what the reality was. But he says, I can understand why they did it because of story. So, so I found that a fun way to catch up. And I wonder whether you may know about this. I wonder whether there are videos about the classic literature, because right now I am struggling to read for medical reasons. So, um, so I have to be a bit selective about how often I can do that. Different things. Ah, dear me. But I'm a fan of stories. I wish I could remember the names and different things better. Also on Kindle, a lot of the classic literature is available, isn't it? A lot of it's available for free. So, any other questions, guys? I'm curious. Are you going to finish watching this video and say, I'm just going to write a little bit? Even if you have like a pretend title of a book, that can be fun. Well, say it depends. You may be somebody who says, "Oh, I love words. I'm going to write down a few words." Or maybe, as I say, I went to this Canva website. I designed the front cover, and that for me makes it feel a little bit more tangible. It's like, okay, this is what I want to call it. This is kind of, I knew that I wanted it to be yellow, for example, and that gives a particular feeling for me about what I want the book to be. I want it to be bright. I want it to be easy to read. Lots of ways to start a project. I suppose that's what I'm saying. Lots of ways to start, and then get that snowball going. So anyone, any more questions? I'm coming up for the hour. It's been a very strange live. The first time I hit go live tonight, the microphone wasn't working, and then it's been an interesting evening. Oh, Dino says, I'm not sure. Oh, A level. I'm doing A level English literature, and I so agree sometimes it's a chore. But I really enjoy analysing books further, such as The Picture of Dorian Gray. Well, good for you for doing A level English. But yeah, I think that's why I mentioned to you about this history channel. It's the dialogue around it as well. It's not just the reading of the story. It's the dialogue and the discussion of people saying, "Oh yes, this was happening at the time, and this could be interpreted this way, but some people feel this way." That's kind of the play that I like. And P says, haha, after this live, I'd love to just sit with a cup of tea. Just my map a story. Okay, well, that's good. I read the first bit then. You didn't put a comma, but I added a comma. So, cup of tea and just my map a story out with doodles. Yeah. Well, do that. I really, really hope you do that. It doesn't have to lead to anything. Just know that it's amazing how low like the barriers to entry are, and that things are possible. As I say, I did this. I'll show you the. I don't know whether it's here. This children's book, The Dental Man. Dental Man and the Very Annoying Misunderstanding. I had this idea over Christmas, and I thought, yay! how hard can it be? And I think sometimes that naivety and that little bit of excitement is good for you. Like, yeah, mind map it. You're not committing to anything. You're just mind mapping and having some fun. Um, so yeah. So I filled it with cartoons. And as I was as I was drawing and creating it, I was thinking, oh my goodness, there's quite a lot of cartoons in a children's book. Then it's like, oh, I need another 5. Oh, I need another 5. Couldn't believe it. So, but yeah, I learned from it, and and yes, sometimes it ends up that there's more work, but especially if you enjoy some of the it sounds like you both enjoy the thinking things through and that time with your own mind. Just trying to think. There was a quote the other day. I keep talking about quotes, don't I? Frida Kahlo, is it? Is that how you pronounce her last name? Frida Kahlo? And she was saying about um, spending time with her favorite person or something like that, which is herself, and about wanting to get to know herself better. Um, and for me, sometimes that spending time with my own mind and ideas that come up, as that's part of what I do with the cartoons and the improv nature of it, is that I'm surprising myself because say sometimes my pictures go a bit wrong or I end up writing something else or it makes me think of something else and you let yourself play and wander off in another direction. So maybe your mind map is all laid out and it's in your head and you just get it down on paper. But maybe you end up writing things that you never thought you were going to write. So that'll be fun. But anyway, so any final questions and then we'll go because it's been an hour. And you guys have things to write and books to read. Good luck in your A-level English. I tell you, I had my a roommate that I lived in London with had done English, and we went to the museum together, and he was telling me about all the different paintings from the different eras and talking about the literature of the time and the stories that explained it. So that was fun. You might find that enjoyable, actually. If I bet you there's YouTube channels who talk about art from the periods of these books, and just for a break from if you're wanting a break from reading the books, you may find it quite interesting to hear them talk about the art because they're giving that historical perspective and what some of the symbolism was. So I find that really, really fun to go to the museum with him. Anyway, pieces. Thank you, Joanne, for your words of wisdom. Thank you. I hope I want you to see me as somebody completely normal, completely kind of average in that, and gave myself permission to write a book, and then you can go, "Ooh, I could do that. If Joanne did that, I think I could do that. I'd figure it out as I go." So Dina says, "Thank you so much, Joanne. I don't usually interact in lives, but this was such a wonderful hour. Lovely way to end my day. A break from study. And good for you for studying and keep enjoying the books." Thank you guys for taking part. I've really enjoyed your company. Bye-bye.